The 2025 NFL season is here. Fantasy football drafts are underway and my teams are locked, loaded, and just ready to disappoint me another year. I don't know why I do this to myself or anyone else. Every single Sunday, I park on that couch, I watch football all day, and just let it slowly crush my soul. Like you can have Jalen Hurts, Jamar Chase, Terry McLaurin, it doesn't matter because on that other team, they have a defense that is having the game of their life, dropping 40 points on you, and you're counting on Najee Harris to just get like 5 points. Just give me 5 points and we'll win. And of course he doesn't. I'm still bitter about losing in the first round of the playoffs last year, but maybe this year is different. And if not, luckily we still have books, and books can be that perfect escape. So week 8, when it's time, close the fantasy football app and maybe escape into some literature. So in this video, I'm giving you book recommendations for NFL teams based on some of the big storylines around the league. It's NFL with a literary twist. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm a big Raiders fan. I question this every single year. I feel like I had no choice in this. I was born into a Raider family. It's like a curse, but I'm actually hopeful this year. And I know I said this last year when we got Minshew and the year before when we got Jimmy G. But this year, I think it feels a little different. They brought in Geno Smith, they got Chip Kelly, they got Pete Carroll, Tom Brady, he's been hanging around practice. So I'm actually kind of excited. I feel like this coaching staff, they're known for taking some big swings. They got a lot of experience. And so for the Raiders, I'm recommending Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is a science fiction novel about this teacher who turned astronaut, who wakes up in outer space. He has no memory, and he faces this impossible challenge on this mission to save humanity. The odds are stacked against him, and honestly, if you look at the AFC West, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders are going to be facing their own Hail Mary moments. In our stadium, I think it kind of looks like a spaceship, so perfect pairing. There's a movie coming out next year. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I would go into it knowing as little as possible and just enjoy the fun ride. And that's kind of Vegas for you. All right, my next recommendation is for fans of the Kansas City Chiefs. To the joy of many, their attempt at a three-peat was unsuccessful. Not even the refs could save them this time. Can I get a drum sound effect here? Now, many people are calling this season the Chiefs' revenge season. I hope not. There's even rumor of Taylor Swift headlining the Super Bowl. Her and Travis Kelce, they just got engaged, so congrats to them. My wife was super excited about that. The only thing she mentions about football. But that being said, I'm predicting coincidence. And so for their fans, I'm recommending The Counts of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Now, this book is the ultimate revenge tale. This story follows a young man who has everything going for him. He has this seemingly perfect life, but that stirs up some jealousy with his so-called friends. He is later accused of some stuff, and which leads to a wrongful imprisonment for him. So I think, like this character, the Chiefs are looking for some treasure. They're looking to reinvent themselves a little and hopefully take down those who betrayed them. So if you're looking for that classic redemption story, this one's for you. All right, let's go with the Eagles next. Coming off their big Super Bowl win, I think they're favorites to repeat. This team has lots of continuity. They got Hurts, they got Barkley, they got Brown. So I think I would want every single one of those guys on my fantasy team. This is just a three-headed monster on offense. So for Eagles fans, I'm recommending The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, this book follows Frodo Baggins. He's a hobbit who inherits this ring that has the power to destroy the world. Realizing it has so much power, he joins this fellowship of warriors, wizards, and friends tasked with carrying this ring to Mount Doom so that it can be destroyed. Now, along the way, they face all kinds of enemies and even the temptation to use the ring's power. So I think with the Eagles, they have the big question is whether they will have the Super Bowl hangover or will they, coaches and players, are they going to stay in sync to go back to back? All right, next up are the Buffalo Bills, and I just want to say I wish I could be a part of the Bills Mafia. Someone give me an application. The team, the fan base, they just seem so fun to be around. They light fires, they go through tables. I think if they ever win a Super Bowl, that fan base is going to celebrate like no other. But this team just has not been able to get over the hump. Every single offseason, I think we ask the same question. When are you guys going to beat the Chiefs? I think maybe they have a shot this year. Their defense should be better this season. They're on Hard Knocks as well. I've been following that. Josh Allen, he's just absolutely incredible. He has this cool mustache this year. He is the #1 QB I'm reaching for in all of my leagues. It's also their farewell season at Highmark Stadium. They've brought back their red helmet, so I think for the fans, there's a lot to be excited about. So for Bills fans, I'm recommending Moby Dick by Herman Melville. This story is about a relentless quest to take down an unstoppable foe. It is about the sailor who joins this ship led by this captain who is obsessed with taking down this great white whale who took his leg. And so this journey, they have storms, strange encounters, all kinds of tension, and ultimately it culminates in this big confrontation. So I think for Bills fans, they have this unshakable belief that this is going to be the year that things will be different. So we'll see. If this is the year the whale goes down, no foreshadowing there. So I think everyone was rooting for a Bills-Lions Super Bowl last year. A lot of us were shocked when the Lions lost to the Commanders. They were one of the most hyped teams last year. And now a lot of people are wondering whether or not their window has closed. I don't think so. I don't think they will have as good as a regular season as last year. Their schedule is looking really tough. They also lost their offensive coordinator to the Bears. But the defense, I think, is hopefully much improved than last year. Aiden Hutchinson, he should be healthy. And I think this team just plays with a lot of grit. So for Lions fans, I'm recommending The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is a post-apocalyptic novel that follows the journey of a father and son who are just trying to survive in this ashy, bleak world. They scavenge for food, they look for shelter, they try to avoid violent threats. The father in the story, he is just determined to protect his son and teach him how to survive despite all the despair around them. So I think this novel was really raw. I think the perseverance in here kind of defines the Lions fan base. They've been one of the losingest teams in all of sports, just really bleak and gray for so long, so many decades of challenges and heartbreak. It's been a really long journey, I think, for them to get to this point. So maybe this year there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like the father, there is hope that Dan Campbell can kind of fight and push these guys through to the finish line. All right, I had Jamar Chase in fantasy last year, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had playing. I have the #1 pick in fantasy this year again, and I'm 100% taking him in every single league. This guy can drop 40 points any given week. I think that Week 10 game last year against the Ravens was incredible. I've never yelled louder watching another team play. Him and Burrow are just lights out. I think going into this season, they are the #1 QB wide receiver duo in the league. I think if you have the chance to stack them, those guys in fantasy, I think it's a no-brainer. I would even add Chase Brown to that. But these guys really just need a lot of help on the defensive end. So for them, I'm recommending Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This science fiction novel follows Ender, who is this prodigy who is recruited to this military training battle school where he is groomed to lead humanity's fight to save the world from destruction. Now, Ender is just this brilliant kid. He is this sharpshooter, has a lot of weapons, and battle after battle, he does his best to lead his troops to victory. And I think he kind of reminds me of Burrow and Chase. They have this similar firepower, but if the Bengals are going to be serious contenders, they're going to need a lot more strategy on the defensive end. All right, so as long as Jerry Jones is still running things, the Cowboys organization is going to feel like a circus, at least from an outsider's perspective. I don't follow this team too much. But Jerry, this year, he's got his Netflix docuseries, the whole Micah Parsons trade situation. I think it's just a really tough time to be a Dallas fan. First Luka, now this. So with all this drama, I'm recommending The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now this book is about this mysterious millionaire who throws these extravagant parties in 1920s New York. He throws these parties in hopes of reuniting with his former love, who has since moved on and married this really wealthy guy. So this book is like the classic critique of the American dream. And in some ways, I think Gatsby is kind of like Jerry Jones. They both have this desire to recapture the past. They have all the glitz, they have all the glam. Gatsby, he's obsessed with this green light. Jerry Jones, he's obsessed with like returning to the Super Bowl. They're always going to be in the headlines. I think the Cowboys are still like a spectacle to watch. They're still a premier brand in sports. I think with a healthy Dak and you give him Lamb and Pickens, I think that still puts them maybe in playoff contention this year. And personally, shout out to Brandon Aubrey. That guy just has a boot. I reach for him early in every single fantasy team that still plays with kickers. 50-yarders just all day. If I was at a Gatsby party and he was there, I'd totally kick it with him. Puns. Okay, so the Ravens are another, just like the Bills, one of those Super Bowl or bust teams. This year they have the chance to win the division for the third year in a row. I feel like for as long as I've been following football, they've been one of the most consistent franchises in the NFL. They always seem to have great teams. Every year they do great in the regular season, but it just seems to fall short in the playoffs. Like Lamar and the team, they just do something so historic every single year, but then they get to the playoffs and it's like the same performance. Same turnovers, same mistakes, and I feel like they're their own worst enemy. And for the Ravens, I'm recommending Shakespeare's Macbeth. This play opens with this general who encounters this trio of witches, and they give him this prophecy that one day he's going to be the king of Scotland. And that kind of sets off this like legendary rise of ambition for this character who, like the Ravens, they just can't get out of his own way. He becomes sort of like the schemer, more violent. He starts killing people. He sees ghosts. Now, I don't really know why I associate this play with the Ravens. I also think of Edgar Allan Poe, but that's a poem, The Raven, and I don't know. So I guess I'll go with Macbeth. This play has a king. The Ravens, they have King Henry. He kind of punishes defenses. Lamar Jackson, he pulls off these like really magical witchcraft-like impossible plays. You watch this team, you think they're destined for greatness, but then you're like, how did you guys let this slip away? I guess fair is foul, and foul is fair. All right, I'm super interested in what the Bears are going to look like this year. I felt like this is back-to-back years where they've had a really hyped-up offseason. I really wanted Ben Johnson to be the coach of the Raiders, but he chose Chicago, and I don't blame him. It seems like they have a bright future. He did really incredible things with Detroit. He had Jared Goff playing like an MVP. The Lions led the league with 70 offensive touchdowns last year, so I'm really curious to see what he and Caleb are going to look like, because despite all of the coaching changes that Caleb Williams had to deal with, I think he had a pretty decent rookie season. I think people make it out to seem like he was much worse than what he actually was. He put up solid numbers. I think he had like 20 touchdowns with only 6 interceptions. So I think Caleb and Ben, I think for years to come, they're going to do great things. The NFC North is looking like one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, right up there with the AFC West. So for Bears fans, I'm recommending Dune by Frank Herbert. This is a science fiction epic set on this desert planet of Arrakis, and on this planet, a bunch of powerful clans battle for control of the universe's most valuable resource. Now, this novel has a lot of sand, there's a lot of worms, there's all sorts of themes of politics and religion, but I'm choosing this because Caleb Williams, to me, he kind of embodies the space prince of this novel. Bears fans have been in a QB drought for decades. They have been forever searching for that guy. And here comes Caleb Williams, this generational prospect who is carrying the weight of a prophecy and all the hopes of a fan base. So we'll see if he and Ben can be the savior and the mentor, or are they just going to add to the long list of guys who never lived up to the hype. Okay, so I think there's a trend with all my book recommendations relating to quarterbacks, and this team will be no different. I don't know anything about the Cleveland Browns other than their QB situation and Myles Garrett. Their entire offseason, I think, was dominated by the Shedeur Sanders headlines. This guy was supposed to be like a top 10 pick, but then somehow he dropped all the way down to the 5th round. I don't know why. I don't know how he's doing in the preseason either. But before they took him, they drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. They also have Joe Flacco, and then there's a $230 million contract for Deshaun Watson. Honestly, this just gives me hope that one day I could be the GM of an NFL franchise. This guy is getting paid millions and millions of dollars to construct that QB room. And then just years before, he traded Baker Mayfield, which is just like wild stuff. So for Browns fans, I'm recommending The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. This book tells the story of a mysterious traveling circus that just appears out of nowhere. There's no set schedule. It just appears in random cities at random times. The circus sort of becomes a place of competition between these two magicians, Celia and Marco, who were kind of like trained since childhood for this specific purpose. Now, I wouldn't even call this book much of a competition. It's more of like magicians trying to impress each other. This book is mostly just like descriptions of circus tents, the attractions, and the magic, so it's like very atmospheric. Some would even call it a love story. Maybe more world building than actual plot, which is kind of what the Browns front office is doing. Are they competing or are they entertaining? All right, these next teams will just be rapid fire. Their team storylines, they just don't interest me as much, and I think I just stretched it as far as I could with that last one. So here we go. New York Giants, check out Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, because let Russ cook. We want Malik Neighbors to have a big year. We all are drafting him in the first round, so hopefully he can have a really big year this year and take that next step. LA Rams, let's go with the Odyssey by Homer. I read that they are traveling the second most miles in the NFL, and that just seems like an epic journey. Stafford, he's probably hearing sirens right about now. Pittsburgh Steelers fans should check out The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Aaron Rodgers, he fell into some hard times last year. Mike Tomlin's teams, they always seem to just overachieve, so we'll see if they can reel in some big wins together. San Francisco 49ers, maybe check out The Glass Castle just based on that title alone, because if you take a risk on Christian McCaffrey this year and he pays off, you'll be living in fantasy royalty. This book has nothing to do with any of that. It's actually a super sad memoir about family relationships. It's really good, super sad. Hopefully CMC stays healthy. All right, my last recommendation, because I feel like I'm just losing it here. Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniel fans, check out Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I feel like Jaden Daniels just rose to like superstardom last year. He got Rookie of the Year, a playoff win. The expectations going into this season are super high. I joined a dynasty league this year, and he's 100% the QB I want for the next 10 years. So I'm hoping there's no sophomore slump with him. And yeah, that wraps up my NFL book recommendations. Hopefully some of these made sense. I feel like for some of them, a little bit like Deshaun Jackson, I'm just stretching it out as far as I could. But if you have any recommendations for NFL-based reads, please drop those in the comments. And also, maybe let's just talk football, because I'm trying to find that space online where like sports and books collide. So let me know what teams you're rooting for this year, which players you're excited about in fantasy, who are your sleepers. And as always, thank you for watching. I wish you all the best of luck in your fantasy drafts this year and your seasons. Hopefully you all crush it. Or maybe just crush some books if that doesn't happen. See you all next time.